Part of our discussion today is the definition of certain halachic category, such as someone who's in a deaf mute, but how far you consider that deaf mute? If someone is partially just hearing and not speaking, speaking and not hearing. Another part of our discussion today is shoteh, the definition of someone who's not mentally capable. What exactly you meant by that? How far you go with that limitation? And some examples. So we are on the very beginning of page 3. We continuing of discussion yesterday, which is a cheresh. We explained that there are two different needs. One is called the pilgrim. We are obligated 3 times a year during the festival to show up in a temple, in the Beit HaMikdash. The second one is to bring with us an offering. And with that said, there is a separate mitzvah that's called v'samachta b'chagecha. We should be in a state of rejoicement in our festival. So the question is, if someone is not totally capable, such as someone who's deaf, he cannot hear but he can speak and not hear. So the Gemara asks, why you differentiate between the mitzvah, the obligation to be a pilgrim in a temple, versus to have the act of rejoicement? How do you differentiate between the two while you're speaking about someone who's partially capable and partially not? So the Gemara said, we learn a juxtaposition, an analogy, verbal analogy, by using the word re'iyah, meaning to see, to be part of the pilgrim, from the mitzvah of assembling the people, hakel, dechtiv, because the Torah said in Deuteronomy chapter 31, hakel et ha'am anashim v'anashim v'atav. The Torah said, gather everyone, and the Torah go to the specification, saying, men, women, and children. Uchtiv bevo kol Yisrael era'ot. So they said, and when all the children of Israel gather. So it means, because it's written twice in such a language, which means the same way as cheresh, someone who's deaf, he's exempt from that mitzvah of hakel. The same way he's exempt from the pilgrim in the festival. And how do you learn? למען ישמעו, למען ילמדו. אותנו למען ישמעו פרט, למדבר ושמעו שומע, למדו פרט, לשומע ולא מדבר. So here we differentiate between learning and hearing. So we say that excluded someone who hear and not speak, and vice versa. Here they bring a specific example, which is amazing and even frightening example of 2 people who cannot speak, and they're living in the neighborhood of the great sage Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgeda, that they are grandchildren, the sons of the daughter of a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgeda. Some said it's the sons of the sister of the great Rabbi Yochanan. So every time he taught, they come to the session and their looks appear like they're moving their lips, and meaning Rabbi noticed that they are making an arduous effort to comprehend what he said, but they cannot speak. So you don't know if they understand or they hear or they fully comprehend. And Rabbi asked for special divine intervention to have them the ability to speak, and they hear. And then, guess what happened? Guess what? When they are capable, when Hashem have compassion on them after he prayed, and they are capable to speak, all of a sudden it turns that they know everything. They know the written, the oral Torah, the teaching, the sifri, it's all kind of definition of different books, including the 6 Tractate of Mishnah and more. It means that these people can be a great Torah scholar while they cannot express themselves. The En Yaakov elaborates on that, and he said, in general, we do not ask Hashem not ask Almighty for something neged teva, against the nature. Meaning, we understand that there is a structure in the world. You don't ask Hashem to turn around the world to a different direction. We believe in the power of our prayer. We have to be in a measurement of normalcy, which means something that it's in a way in a normalcy. Okay, but here you see exceptionally, Rabbi pray for them to be able to speak. Why is that? So he explained, he noticed, listen to Ein Yaakov, he said, Rabbi noticed that these students are so devoted to understand Torah. They are after him every second. They're sitting in the class and they're moving their lips. They're so sincere intent to learn Torah, so he felt that by praying for them, he basically not changing the nature, but bringing their wishes to reality in the desire to fulfill Hashem commandment of study Torah. Those of you who study public speaking know that sometimes expression of the face, facial expression, certain moving of the, so it's part of the body language, so he noticed that, and that's the Ein Yaakov said, that's the reason why he prayed against the teva. Amar Marzutra krebe leman yelamdu. So there is a two-way there's a kri and ktiv, yelamdu or yelamedu, yilmedu or yelamdu. So it means if they learn or they teach. Amar Rabashi Amar vadai leman yelamduhu. I explained in my book Biurei Klomar berashi al hashas. Rashi here said, Klomar belav kushia danach treil melek halukma lidrasha. So it means without that Rashi was disturbed why Rav Ashi come and challenge Marzutra. So he said it's not basically challenge, is just strengthen his point. Mechazek et dvarav. So Rashi said here that he wants to teach us the concept of the difference between yelamdu to yilmedu. So and we derive from the story of these two ilmim, two people who are not capable of speak. The ksakadach lemal yilmedu ki bekal lo mishte lo gamar, bekal lo shama lo gamar. So Tosfot explains in the Bua Matchil Milaman that it's not just hearing. You have students. I'm teaching in a college, so you see students who just sitting there and it come from one ear go to the others. So they hear something, but they're spacing out. The idea is that the person have the right listening, comprehension listening and understand it. So that's the idea. So far we talk about someone who's blind in one of his eyes. If you have someone who's one of the ears is deaf, meaning you ask Dr. Avron, right? Dr. Marcus will tell you that there are people, unfortunately, whose one ear is perfect, another ear they cannot hear. So he said, the Torah said in the Mitzvah Hakel in Deuteronomy 31, Be'oznehem, you should deliver the message to the children of Israel in the ear. But someone who's one of the ears are not functioning, he is exempt. So the question is, where Bitanchum speaks about one or two, Ve'ai be'oznehem iba'ele, be'oznehem dechulu Yisrael. Be'oznehem applies to the nation. So Maharsha have elaborates and said it doesn't mean that it's applied to two ears of one person. It's applied be'oznehem, the plural, for the expression of the nation of Israel. In the ears they should hear that. Hahu neged kol Israel nafka. Mineged kol Israel nafka, which means use the word for all the Israel, so that means for everyone to hear. But here, by using the word be'oznehem, that it looks superfluous, and I have to say that that's to define the one who hear only with one ear versus someone who's normal and hearing both. If he said, the Tosfot said, since they are standing far away from the king, so it wasn't a sound system, that people can hear from being far away. כתב רחמנה באוזניהם, והוא דשמי, so that specifically when they hear their reading, which means that it's not enough to be at the present at the time of the reading, they have to hear that. That's the idea of leman yishme'u. So Rabbi Tanchum, according to this conclusion of the Gemara, he derived that someone who's deaf in one ear, and for sure someone in both, that's the meaning of the word be'oznehem, that they have to be in both ears. The Sfat Emet have some to say, Sirach Yitzchak respond. But anyway, Amar Rabbi Shash said, ve'amar Rabbi Tanchum, חיגר ברגלו אחת פטור מן הראייה. So here we speak, we went to eye to ear, now we go to legs. Someone who missed one of the legs, so he is exempt from the pilgrim, because the Torah said in the book of Exodus, chapter 23, שנאמר, רגלים, שלוש רגלים תחוג בשנה, 3 festivals. So the word רגל, you can have more than one derivative, and the רגלים, it's also, it's like רגליים, which means someone with 2 legs. והרגלים מבעלי, so we said that it's something else that's applied to festivals. פרט לבעלי קבים, so someone who has, for example, a amputate leg, etc. So he is exempt from the pilgrim. And Rashi here elaborate how far you go with this part of amputated leg. Hahu mipe'amim nafka. So the Gemara responds and says that's derived from the word pe'amim, the Tanash. The Torah said pe'amim, 3 פעמים בשנה, 3 times a year. אין פעמים אלא רגליים. וכן הוא אומר, תרמסן הרגל רגלי אני פעמי דלים. So if we derive from that's expression of the end of the days, that ואומר, מעפו פעמי דלים בת נדיב. So it means that this is some type of expression, some type of simile, of euphemism for those wearing shoes. So we continue and we derive from that Song of Songs. דרש רבא מאי דכתיב מה יפו פעמי בנעלים בת נדיב. נעלים, it's like רגל שלמה, is a full leg. You use the shoes in order to make עלייה לרגל, in order to have a pilgrim. כמה נעים רגליהם של ישראל בשעה שעולים לרגל. How nice, how beautiful is the nation of Israel when they go and do the pilgrim. That's based on Rashi in Tractate Chagigah, page 49b. So they said, Bat Nadiv, Bito shel Avraham Avinu Nikra Nadiv, the euphemism of the daughter of Abraham, it's called Nadiv, which means, Rashi said that Nedavo Libo, that he has a voluntarily act in his heart to recognize he is a creator. Shenemar, they said, King David said in Psalm 47, that's important, that's applied to all the people who convert to Judaism. So we are never proselytized. And if people come and join us with a sincere to accept Kabbalat all mitzvot, that they accept themselves the burden of the mitzvot, so therefore that became part of Elokei Avraham, that they accepted God of Abraham as their God, the monotheistic God. So Elokei Avraham, lo Elokei Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Why use only Abraham like Magen Avraham and not Yitzchak and Yaakov? Ela Elokei Avraham she'aya tchila lagerim, because Abraham was the first one who's the one who initiated the acceptance of people who are not part of our faith to be part of us. So the Maharsha over there in Sukkah 49b explains that the mitzvah of when God commanded him to take his son and bind him on the altar, the Hagigah, so he went and he did with no questions. He just obeyed the God's the same way as us, as his descendants, when God asked us to do the pilgrim, to go to Yerushalayim for Aliyah Lרגל, who will follow that path. And the same way, the Sfat Emet said that Abraham was asked, one of the 10 trials and tribulation is Lech Lecha, to leave your homeland, to leave everything and to go to unknown place, and he did it full-heartedly to obey what God asked him to do. So that's the expression of the people who followed him, especially the convert who living their enculturation, the way that they brought up, the way that they learn in their childhood. If they understand that it's the deity, if it's the worshipping idols and all kind of things that not in the monotheistic belief that is only one God. So they leave everything, their homeland, they leave their families, and they join our faith with sincerity. So since we talk a few things in the Memra statement from Rabbi Tanchum, now we derive another one. אמר רב כהנא דרש רבי נתן בר מנימין משום רבי תנחום. מה דכתיב והבורק אין בו מים. The Torah said the famous story of Joseph and his brothers. So they said in Bereshit in Genesis 37 that this cistern, this pit, has no water. משמע שנאמר והבורק אין יודע שאין בו מים. Since you tell me clearly that the pit is empty, I know for sure that there is no water there. So why you tell me that it's empty? That is no water. משמע שנאמר והבורק אין יודע שאין בו מים, אלא מים אין בו, הנחשים והקרבים יש בו. There is no water, but there were snakes and scorpions in it. So the Ramban on the Torah explains that you have to remember that this brother didn't realize that. The Marsha asked, they said about Reuven that he saved them. So it's based in Gemara in Yevamot. If a person is thrown to a pit, to a cistern, and it's clear that there are snakes and scorpions there. So if the witnesses come and said, we saw it, let's say it's scenario, you have the enemies, and they throw a person to a pit, and you know that he's a dangerous scorpions and snakes there. So the people who saw it can come to a Beit Din, and Beit Din can release the wife by that testimony. It's enough to release, even they not physically see it. That's a famous Gemara in Yevamot. So the question is why they throw him there. So Rav Mizrahi explained that they brothers didn't know that, meaning they knew that they throw him to a pit, but they didn't realize that pit. There is a Orach Chaim that it's very hard to comprehend that Orach Chaim. It's a little bit Kabbalah. The Orach Chaim said that the difference between snakes and scorpions is that einam ba'alei bchira, meaning that they do not have the freedom of choice, in a sense that they do what Hashem asks them. So if Hashem asked them not to bite him, even Joseph was there, they couldn't bite him, because that's not in their choice, it's in Hashem decision what to do. But it's the whole idea of bechira chofshit, of freedom of choice, to try to differentiate between animals and people. It's kind of controversial subject in Judaism. Anyway, they said Tanu Rabbanan, מעשה ברבי יוחנן בבוקר ורבי אלעזר בן חיסמה שלחו להקביל פני רבי יהושע בפקיעין. So the whole idea is during the festival a person is חייב אדם לכבד רבו, a person needs to go and respect his teacher by visiting on the festivals. That's the famous Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, page 16b. So they said they went to that place in a city called Pki'in, is in Galilee in Israel. Amar la'im, Rabbi Yeshua said to them, "My chidush bebeit hamidrash hayom." What did you learn? What do you learn today in the Beit HaMidrash? The Mechilta asked why he himself didn't come. Anyway, Amru talmidecha anu memecha anu shotim. So they said, it's like based on Isaiah 55, that you are our teacher, we're drinking your water. Why are you asking us what's happening in the Beit HaMidrash? אמר להם, אבל בכן אפשר לבית המדרש בלא חידוש? שבת של מי הייתה? So you're going to tell me that nothing new happened in the Beit HaMidrash? Who is the one who's turned that Shabbat? So the Gemara in Brachot, page 27-28, speaks about the time that Rabbi Gamliel was forced out of his presidency, and then it was a compromise by having 3 out of 5 of the 4 Shabbatot when he reinstated his Rabbi Gamliel and the other ones, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So they said Shabbat של Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, which means that was his Shabbat turn to be a public orator, to be one who delivered the speech. So what's the subject of his session? He talked about this subject of mitzvah of assembling the people. What exactly he derived from that? So that, they said, I said in Deuteronomy 31, in gather, assemble all the people, men and women and children. If you have men and then you have women. So Tosfot said here, so he derived from the idea, unlike the others, that a person is obligated to teach also his daughter's Torah, which is again, it's a not so simple as a some type of disputation, if that's obligatory or optional, etc. So why you bring a little one? In order to give a reward to those who brought them. So Tosfot said, I wish that David Cohen is here because of Avi, right? We encourage children to come to shul, and it's this Tosfot said, that is some type of proof to bring children to synagogue. In the code, I think it's in the 55, but anyway, in the code there's a discussion how you read the Megillah while the children make so much noise. Is that acceptable or not? Anyway, so basically in the general halacha is if the children somehow can be disciplined not to overboard, right? Anyway, so this is such a beautiful pearl, beautiful studies, and you try to take away that's a famous Pirkei Avot who said Ashrei Yoladeto, that the mother brought him to Beit HaMidrash. So sometimes you feel you bring these little children, but we believe that their neshama, their soul here, and one day they remember that. You talk to the elderly people that have regression therapy, they speak about the early childhood, they have early memories. So it's good to bring them to Beit HaMidrash, to a place that people pray and study. V'od Arash, Et Hashem Emarta Hayom, they said in Deuteronomy 26, today, praise God, והשם ימרח היום, אמר להם הקדוש ברוך הוא לישראל, אתם עשיתוני חטיבה אחת בעולם, ואני אעשה אתכם חטיבה אחת בעולם. You make me unique in the world, and I make you the same. אתם עשיתוני חטיבה אחת בעולם, דכתיב שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו השם אחד. We said every day in Deuteronomy, from Deuteronomy 6, Hoyer Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. ואני אעשה אתם חטיבה אחת בעולם, and I will make you as a single entity in the world. Because it said in the book of Chronicles, chapter 17, Shene'emar, because it stated, who was loyal people who are unique, one nation. So Tosfot here elaborates, and the idea is that we said it in Mincha on Shabbat afternoon, that it's like a testimony for our uniqueness, for our exceptional nation, that we are scattered, we are special. Famous statement from Mark Twain, right? Anyway, the Havdi. So Patach Vedarash, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Afu said, they said in Ecclesiastic chapter 12, דברי חכמים כדורבנות וכמסמרות נטועים בעלי הסופות ניתנו מרועה אחד. The word wise are as goats and snails, feathers, those who compose in collections. So the idea is they have this type of skin that it's like a throne. So it's using again a euphemism. The idea is ניתנו מרועה אחד, they all came from one shepherd. So it means, לומר לך מה דרבן זה מכוון את הפרלת למאה ולהוציא חיים לעולם, אבל דרתו מכוונים תלמדם את דרכי מיטה לדרכי חיים. The same way as this animal, the goat, direct the cow to her furrow, to bring forth sustenance. So the meaning to go to the proper path, not to go astray. The same ways the word of Torah bring person to a real living life. So this is a famous Gemara in Eruvin 21, that's what King Solomon said. He put the boundaries, that's the word of the sages, in order, like Eruvin, like Netilat Yadayim, the Marsha said, all these ideas that in order to put people to the right path, to make it more structural, so people can follow and makes their life in the living life, the proper life. מה דורבן זה מטלטל, ודורי תום מטלטלים, תלמוד לומר מסמרות. So it's like a nails. So the same way as the nail, it's stuck there and is there. The Marsha said that's the same way as the rabbinic teaching. It's instituted and we can have no power to change it. אם המסמר זה חסר ולא יתר, אבל תורה חסרים ולא יתרים. Don't try to think that because you study Torah, oh, I'm losing businesses, I'm losing some income. No, it's the other way around. תלמוד לומר נתינים, מה נטייה הזו פרה ורבה, דברי תורה פרים ורבים. The other way around, the same way as you're planting something and later on it's growth, the same way as the Torah is grow, fruitful and multiply, which means it's also applied to, the Rif said, that it's applied also to prosperity. Sometimes people think the other way around, but the Mishnah in Avot tells us that the person should make the Torah keva, the permanent course of life, purpose of life is the Torah, and the others is just to survive, to make a living, and not the way that people sometimes think. בעלי הסופות, אלו תלמידי חכמים שיושבים בסופות ועוסקים בתורה. This is applied to the concept of yeshiva, when gathering of chavusas, so people who study together. So it means that people assemble together and study, and that's the way you increase your knowledge, by study with a study mate and in a group of people that they study. הללו מתאימים ואתלו מתארים, הללו אוסרים, הללו מתרים, הללו פוסלים, הללו מכשירים. You have people that they argue. That's very positive in Judaism. We encourage disputation. In a sense, we encourage knowledge by having two or three going in different direction in the thought and argue over things, while eventually we come to a final halacha, as long as it's a framework of understanding the Torah and friendship, not getting personal. So you see here, some people say that it's okay, some not, some say that it's prohibited, some said not, some say that this one is invalid for priesthood, someone said that it's okay. So since there is מחלוקת הפוסקים, if you hear disputation, so what should I do? תלמוד לומר, כולם ניתנו מרועה אחד. אלו ואלו דברי אלוקים חיים. They are all from the divine providence. אל אחד נתנם. Only one Almighty gave them. פרנס אחד אמרה מפי אדון כל מעשים ברוך הוא. Only one, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, transmitted, as the Rashi said it, that based on Tehillim 80, that's one of the 13 principles of the Maimonides, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the prophet of the prophets. He delivered to us the message, and therefore we, דכתיב וידבר אלוקים את הדברים האלה, אף אתה עשה אוזנך כאפר כסת, which means afar keset is like you make your ear attentive to listen, and the Maharsha elaborated and he said that you, from that point, you hear all the disputation, וקנה לך לב מבין לשמוע דברי המתאמים, דברי המתארים, דברי האוסרים, דברי המתרים, דברי הפוסלים ודברי המכשירים. So you hear all the different views, and by hearing all different views, you broaden your mind to understand all the different avenues, and then from that point you will see the practical halacha. So if you look at the Jewish history, read the history, for example, of the Rif. Okay? So at the early stage, they didn't want to accept it. I'm not talking about Maimonides, that some burned some of his books. I'm just talking about practical halachot. But every generation, we have nowadays the abbreviation of the code, Rabbi Gansfried, or things like that. But in general, the proper way is to hear all the process, which we are doing, and then to go to practical halachot to see, after all is said and done, what is the way we have it in the final word of halacha. When you read a rabbinic responsa, you see sometimes many pages of discussions, and then you see the final conclusions. So it's a process that's taking place, and it's good for us to understand the whole process before reading just the conclusion, because if you just read the conclusion, sometimes you misconstrue the whole mindset of why they get to that point. בלשון הזה אמר להם, אין דור יתום, רבי אלעזר בן עזר השירות בתוכו. So the Maharsha explained that it's the other way around. It's a praising him. So why they play all that game? Why didn't say straight that that's what we learn? Why they said we are student of you and we learn from משום מעשה דלתניא, מעשה בר יוסף בן דורמסקית, שלח להגביל את פני רבו אליעזר או אלעזר, that's the הגדול בלוד. He went to visit his rabbi. אמר לו, מה חידוש היה בבית המדרש היום? The same story, he said, what do you learn new in בית המדרש today? אמר לו, נגמנו וגמרו אמנון והמסרים 10 בשביעית. So first let me read the whole story and then we go to details. So they said, אמנון ובואב, they have the second tithe in the sabbatical year. אמר לו, רבי יוסף, פשוט אותך וקבל בניך. He said, prepare yourself, you're going to be blind. Why is that? Because they disputed what the men of the great assembly said. And you have no rights to go against what the early sages said. פשט ידיו וקיבל עיניו, he became blind. בחר רבי אליעזר ואמר, סוד השם יראה ובריתו לידיו, they said in Tehillim, in Psalm 25, that the sages usually meant the truth, and they made a decree in the view of truth. אמר לו, לך אמור להם, אל תחוש למעניינכם. כך מקולן ברבי יוחנן מזק שמע מרבו ורבו מרבו, והלכתה למשה מסיני אמונם מעשר אני בשביעית. So that's a transmitted from Moses that the nation of Ammon of Moab having a second title in sabbatical year. Now, I'm going to the end of that paragraph and then I'll go to the details. מה טעם הרבה כרכים כבשו עליהם מצרים ולא כבשו עליהם בבל? מפני קדושה ראשונה קדשה לשעתה ולא קדשה לתלבו, היא ניחום שיסמכו עליהם עניים בשביעית. תנא לאחר שישבה דעתו אמר לרצון שיחזרו אל יוסי למקומם וחזרו. So the whole idea is there are two avenues. Rashi said it's because here there's a man of the great assembly and they come up with a new idea. So basically deserve to have the blindness because they go against what the early sages said. Maharsha goes a little different direction. He said the other way around. He basically more halacha bifnei rabo. The Rebbe is there and the Rebbe rules differently and you come up with something that is the opposite of what the Rebbe teach you. So therefore it's something that you deserve. But the beauty of that is when Rabbi Eliezer, he went an extra mile and he prayed that even the student deserve the blindness. He prayed that Hashem will forgive them and give them back the ability to see and they get it back. So beside of the story itself, the narrative, we go now to understand what is the discussion is all about. Discussion is, we have a relative. I mean, it looks like a distant relative, but it's still relatives. We all know the story in Genesis of Lot and his daughters. They have prohibited illicit relation in the cave, and as a result they have the two sons, which is Ammon and Moab. Ammon and Moab, since the connection to us from Abraham, so they are relatives of us. So we have to treat them, the Torah tells us in Deuteronomy, in certain ways. We're not allowed to call a war against them, etc. Yet, what happened is, it was two nations that conquered them, which is the nation of Og and Sichon. They rule over those nations of Ammon and Moab. So now in a different states. Now we're allowed to do a conquer against the two new nations, which is Og and Sichon. It's not against Ammon and Moab. With that said, so this part of the Jordan that belongs to the 2.5 tribes, the Reuven, Gad, and a half of Menashe that conquered that part, now they have that part of the land, so they need to divide it and make decisions how to do it. So they left for the poor people, for the time of need, the sabbatical, that part of the land. So that's the idea. Ammon and Moab, me'asrim ani bashvi, they take the maaser ani, the tithe that given to the poor people in the sabbatical year. So it's not, in other words, it's another maaser nosaf, it's another one for them. Tanu Rabbanan. Now the next one, I wish that we have more board members here, because the discussion here is, what is the definition of moron or idiot or stupid, right? Eizeu shoteh. Explain to me, what do you mean by saying someone who is imbecile? Imbecile. You have to explain to us, because it can go in many directions. Right? So we say that that person is exempt from all the mitzvot, and whatever he buy and sell, we don't pay attention to him. What does that mean? Is that applied to someone who is a slick, or is applied to someone who is total moron, or is an idiot? What exactly it means? No offense. Hayotze yechidi balayla. The first example is that Reverend said that someone would go to a dangerous, lonely place at night, meaning a place of danger. He goes there. Why in the world you go there by yourself at night? You know that you endanger yourself. Imagine if a fellow goes, for example, to war zone or downtown DC, all kind of weird places at night. You endanger yourself, so you are under the category of someone who is, how do you call it? What is the word for shorte?
Imbecile.
Imbecile. Okay. The next one is והלן בבית הקברות, someone who goes to a cemetery and sleep there. What in the world you doing there? Right? Why are you sleeping in a cemetery? והמקרע את כסותו, and you see someone who tearing his garment. Why are you doing that? איתמר רב הונא אמר, עד שיהיו כולם בבת אחת, רבי יוחנן אמר אפילו באחת מהן. So here is a disputation between the rabbis. When you call someone in that category of shote, right? So Rav Huna said, as long as he didn't do 3 times in one time, meaning 3 consecutive same actions, Rabbi Yochanan said even one time. He did it one time, it's already in that category. Hechidami. If the person lost his mind for a short time, which happened, you read the minutes of last month. Oh, did I say that? I never said that, right? But the recording secretary wrote what you said. Anyway, so afilu b'chadanami, he is already considering a moron, even for doing it one time. Even he didn't do it in a way of stupidity, right? Afilu kulu namilo, even he did it 3 times, you don't call him shote, right? So לעולם דכאבי לדרך שטות, meaning that the person did it in a way that it doesn't make any sense. We once, years back, we have a student in our yeshiva who, when he spaced out, when he studied Torah very deeply, he used to swallow his tie. And we are looking at him, and he was studying well, but and sometimes you need to like put him, instead of spacing out.
Remember Jerry Tarkanian?
Right?
With a towel?
Yeah.
As a coach of a basketball team, a college basketball team, and he always had a towel in his mouth. He used to just chew his towel the whole game.
Right. So it's not a show thing.
Yeah.
He said about the late president of Egypt, Sadat,
Right.
that he used to do while he was talking, he was started talking, he used to move his hand and focus on things that it's not related. Anyway, so halan bebeit hakvarot k'neimu shtishra alav ruach tuma. Why is someone sleeping in a cemetery? Maybe he's a wicked person. Guess what? He wants to have some type of sorcery ability. He wants to be able to be a clairvoyant, to know the future and all kind of communication of the evil spirit. So he purposely sleep in a cemetery to get that, to accept that evil spirit. Who the kavi, which means he did it, he's not stupid, he just did it intentionally, right? So maybe he have the mental disease that certain disease that's called kadachat, that he goes there for that reason. In the Greek language they said that someone does that weird things that is part of that disease. Maybe if someone tears his garment, he's a man engaged with thought, and out of anxiety he tears his clothing unintentionally, right? But since he does that 3 times, they are considered, page 4, like the actions of a forward ox that gore an ox, shor chamor vegamal, naasa moed lakol. So this is a well-known Gemara that we study in Bava Kama 37, that we differentiate when you have an ox. So the ox went ahead and he basically harmed another one. So if you harm ox, donkey, camel, so you treat him as mu'ad, someone who's already, that he's a trouble ox. Now there's a discussion there if he did it 3 times to ox, or 3 times each of them to a different animal. How you treat him? So basically we said as long as he did harm in the same manners 3 times, even it's a 3 different type of animals, it's already considering mu'ad, it's already considered someone that is na'asa mu'ad lakol, he has become a forewarned for every type of animal. So in that sense, likewise, if someone performed 3 different dangerous actions, it's assumed that there is no logical reason for his behavior and is classified as imbecile, which means someone who is total moron. So there is a disputation among the Rishonim what exactly mean derech shtut. Tosfot said in 3b, derech shtut afilu bechad nami, that he did the same action 3 times. That's called shote. But there are other Rishonim, la Maharsha, said that it has to be the same specific way of manner of doing that. Amar Rav Papa, Rav Papa go the other way. Ishmialu l'Ravuna adetanya ezu shote. Give me an example of someone who is in that category. Ze me'abed kol ma shenotnim lo. There's someone, you give him something and he lose constantly. So he said, hava adarbi, another option, that someone who does something and then he backed off, which means he does something that doesn't make any sense in 3 different locations, 3 different times, 3 times, right? So here you see the different category. Ba'alo, ki hava adarbi, mi mekera ksuto da hava adarbi d'dam yalea, o dilma mikulo hava adarbi teiko. So exactly what do you mean by that? You mean to say when Rav Papa claimed that Ravuna will have retracted his statement, will he have retracted only from the case of one who tore his garment, is a person is similar to one who destroyed whatever is given to him, or he retracted his opinion with regard to all the sign that that person is a total shote, and they left it as unresolved. Obviously, when it's come to people's stupidity or people act of insanity, so it's kind of hard to define. And in that sense, you may say that only if it repeats the same thing in the same manner 3 times. Again, the big question is if in 3 different locations or 3 different times, that's instituted that person as a total shote. So we have today a discussion over the definition when it's come to mitzvah of appearance in a temple. So if someone, for example, who is deaf in one ear, the Rambam said in Ilchot Chagigah, Sefer Korbanot Chagigah, chapter 2, an individual who is deaf in one ear is exempt from the mitzvah of an appearance. An individual who is lame in one leg is exempt from the mitzvah of the appearance, because again the Torah required a total capability in order to be in the Beit HaMikdash. We also discussed the idea of shote, when someone is considering a person who is imbecile. So this is basically the Shulchan Aruch Yoredea in chapter 1, also Choshen Mishpat 35. He said with regard to one who's go out alone at night, tear his garments, sleep in a cemetery, or loses whatever is given, that's the Talmud Yerushalmi. So if he performs any of one of these actions in deranged matter, he is in the halachic status of imbecile. That's basically Rabbi Yochanan. However, this applies only if he regularly behaves in this manner. If not, does not have the halachic status of imbecile, even if he performs the act of deranged manner. That's the shach. Similarly, one whose mind is consistently impaired in one aspect, even if he is otherwise coherent, is considered an imbecile.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai